I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Today, we talk about marijuana, asking if some of the risks outweigh the benefits. Dale Quigley from the National Marijuana Initiative shares the research, science, and findings that expose some at-risk populations experiencing unintended health consequences. Nobody likes getting more problems than they bargained for. Welcome to the show, Dale. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here today.
Well, thank you, Peter, and thank you so much for the invite to come join you. You always have done a great job at this, and it's a pleasure to be either the 250th or 251st one, plus or minus one. So either way. So like Peter said, my name is Dale Quigley. I'm the Deputy Coordinator for HIDA's National Marijuana Initiative. Now, HIDA stands for High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area. It's a program that comes out of the ONDCP, the Office of National Drug Control Policy. There's 33 separate HIDAs in the United States. Their responsibility is to disrupt and dismantle the large drug trafficking organizations from bringing drugs into our country, or once it's here domestically, from spreading it through our country. Our initiative's a little different. As you can tell, my years in law enforcement are pretty much over. So what we have shifted into, this is more of an education and prevention initiative that focuses solely on marijuana, especially today's marijuana. And the reason that's important, Peter, is that there is so much misinformation and disinformation that has surrounded this drug for decades that a lot of people don't know where to go to get factual information that's not of a biased nature, has a slant to it. And that's the role that we provide. We've got a website, thenmi.org, the National Marijuana Initiative.org. And what you'll find there on that website is evidence-based, fact-based, science-based information. What you're not going to find there, you're not going to find reefer madness. You're going to go blind if you smoke this stuff. We're trying to replace all the falsehoods out there with a new dialect of truth. And I know, what a concept coming from government, right? So in a nutshell, that's where we come from on this one. Personally, I spent almost 40 years as a cop here in Colorado. Most of that time was working undercover in drugs, which I absolutely loved. I ended up working for the local HIDA office here in Denver for a while, running the intelligence unit for a 4-state region. Love that as well. And then I think somebody at the national level needed to satisfy an AARP requirement at the National Marijuana Initiative, and they selected me to be the number 2 guy. So there you are. There's Sir Quigley in a nutshell.
Well, you know, this is fascinating because having met you, and I have a real bias towards being wary and careful about marijuana. And I would, I remember saying stuff to you, and you'd be the first one to say, wait a minute, we don't have that data. You might think that's a problem, but we don't have that research. So I had a new idea about how you actually approach this job, which is pretty fairly when it comes to science and research.
Well, you have to.
What are some of the top points that you're noticing that for the average person, we wouldn't recognize are risks with marijuana?
Well, everybody knows, Peter, that marijuana is not addictive. Everybody knows you're a safer driver when you're using marijuana than alcohol. Everybody knows there's no withdrawal to this. Everyone knows once you regulate it, you're going to keep it out of the hands of small children. These are just some of the reoccurring problems that we're seeing, not just here in Colorado, but we're seeing them nationally, is that the misconception and the misperception of what this drug truly is. And I would tell you right now, this is really no longer about the commercialization of marijuana as it is the promotion of THC just as a drug formed by itself. People want to say that, there's social injustice and equity issues. And I got to tell you up front, this is not a black thing. It's not a brown thing. It's not a white thing. The only thing this is really about is green, Federal Reserve notes. It's about money and profits. And make no doubt, there is a ton of money to be made out there. But with that money comes with some risk and inherent dangers. And one of them is that, marijuana is addictive. Okay, even now, the Diagnostic Services Manual recognizes marijuana, a cannabis use disorder, as an addiction. It also includes, how do you treat the withdrawal symptoms? The folks that we talk to in the treatment centers are saying the withdrawal from marijuana is one of the nastiest things they've seen because it takes so long, the impact on the body. So I would start with that one with you. It's addictive. People need to understand that. Does that mean everyone's going to use it, is going to get hooked? No. But about 1 in 5 will. And if you want to compound the issue from 1 in 5 to make it 1 in 3, you use early, you start often, and you use high potency products. All of those lead to greater sensitive problems down the road of substance use disorders and cannabis use disorders. But again, like I said, the good news is not everyone who uses it is going to get addicted. But have you ever noticed that we talk about stats where it's 1 in 3 and it's 1 in 5? We never consider we're going to be the one. It's always the other guy. I'm okay, but you're going to be host. Okay, it's always the other guy. So that'd be the first one I'd start with. It would be addiction.
Well, and I agree with that. I agree with what you say, and I've seen the science, but yet when you talk to people about it, they're in pretty big denial. No matter what science you put in front of them, they refuse to believe that it's addictive. They think it's some kind of government conspiracy.
Don't confuse me with facts, Peter. My mind is made up. But see, that's a problem. That I think when we look at this issue nationally, we look at it on both sides of the coin. If we put this out on a bell curve, the far left and the far right are absolutely so entrenched in their belief system, you're not going to blow them out of there with dynamite. But what about the rest of us, that 80% that live in the middle? We're trying to find good information, and that's really the role we're trying to supply. Is this really addictive? What does the current research have to say? That's why when we started doing this website, the fundamental focus was evidence-based, fact-based, science-based, peer-reviewed. That's why we push the information out there.
All right, we've got some interesting facts to approach in the next segment. We're going to take a short break and continue our conversation with Dale. We welcome you back. You don't want to miss this.
The black truck? Hey, Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend. You want to see some photos of them that I took?
I don't.
I thought we talked about this, buddy.
Buzzed and overshared again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
That's a smart idea.
So yeah, I know, that's why I did it.
Hey, you're gonna get back to the top of the mountain.
Does that mean I'm gonna get back with Christina?
No.
Oh.
No.
Every second, 127 new devices connect to the internet. You can feel it happening. Our digital world expanding with every breath. We're entering a whole new era of connectivity, and MediaCom will be ready to power it with one of the nation's first 10G platforms. We'll be bringing you more speed, more capacity, more security, and the power to do more than you ever dreamed possible.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're talking with Dale Quigley from the National Marijuana Initiative. Dale, we talked a lot about this issue of marijuana and the misinformation, but out there in this world are people, women that are pregnant, people suffering from anxiety, PTSD. I mean, they're looking for real world solutions because they've had a struggle, some mental health or physical struggle. And they're all finding that marijuana seems to be the answer to all these problems. Now, okay, grant you, we've all tried things that probably don't work because of an ad we've seen on TV or somewhere else. But worse than that, rather than not working at all, some of these things have really bad unintended consequences. What are some of these relationships you've figured out in the research through your organization?
One of the things that jumps out to me, and not only as a parent, but also as a grandparent here, is the number of females who are pregnant while they are pregnant in utero are smoking marijuana or consuming a cannabis-based product. And they don't understand that what they're taking in either orally or by vaporous form is going to transplant itself through the placenta into the child to some degree. Okay, we learned so much about alcohol and fetal alcohol syndrome. We've got to apply some of those same lessons as it applies to the use of cannabis. And what's scary is that when you go into a dispensary, and not all dispensaries do this, but when you go into a dispensary and it's like, my granddaughter is, pregnant or she's sick, and you've got some guy on the other side of the counter basically giving you medical advice. Oh, you need to take this, you need to take that, this will help with this will help with that. Recently I had my partner in crime here, who lives down in Kentucky, goes into a dispensary and says, hey, my eldest daughter, she's pregnant and she's not doing real good with the pregnancy. I heard this stuff helps. Bud tender goes, well, she shouldn't smoke. First off, smoking is the worst thing she could probably do right now. All right, kudos, good for him. He says, but over here, let's take a look at some of these edibles and these gummy bears. And it's like, does it matter if you're smoking it or inhaling it or if you're ingesting it orally? No, you're still introducing THC into the body. So one of the first effects that we see is what happens with that fetus as it's developing. Research is supporting that, tendency is to a lower birth rate, maybe preterm birth period, low gestational period. There's also some concerns at about 6-7 years of age. There's some attention deficit disorders that start to manifest themselves. Now, got to understand, Peter, the two words that everyone is afraid to use is causation and correlation, right? Nobody wants to be able to point the finger. And they say, well, we just don't have the science or the research. Well, we're starting to get that now. If anyone ever asked, did anything good come out of legalization? I'd tell you, yeah, it did. What came out of it is we're getting better research on today's products, okay? The stuff that you and I knew back 40, 50 years ago when we were in school, no relationship to what's out there in the market right now. So we need to build up that information base to the general public so they have an understanding going into this, whether you're pregnant, whether you've got a teenager that's deciding to use, because we're seeing there's some damage can be done to the prefrontal cortex there that may delay the development process. And the sad thing is, man, you only get one shot at that one. So some of the problems that we are going to experience, we think this is probably the next major public health crisis that we've got is in another 5, 10, 15 years down the road, because we now have children in, let's say in our state in Colorado, since the year 2000 that grew up with medical marijuana in their mind. And since 2012, 2013, now it's recreational, commercial adult use, right? So they've had a generation already start to go under the bridge with this stuff. And we may not see some of these problems manifest itself for another 10, 15, 20 years. And how many kids have to go under that bridge before we kind of turn around, take a good look at this? Is this in the best interest of public health?
We have a responsibility. I mean, we as all citizens and people in public health and public safety, do we have a responsibility to protect underage youth from these products?
Yeah, I think we do. And I don't think it just applies to what occupation you have or what initials you have behind your name. To me, that's just a human issue that we have to take care of each other. Because like it or not, we're stuck here together. There's no exit plan to getting off Earth or going to some other planet. We're all in this together. And whether it's good or it's bad, we have an obligation to leave this in a better place than where we found it for our children and for our children's children.
Now, we hear a lot of talk from people, and sometimes both sides of the issue. There really aren't that many kids using marijuana. So we're making a big deal out of nothing. But it seems like those numbers have really grown nationally, that more and more kids are actually using. So that argument that there aren't many of them seems to be going away. What are you seeing? Well,
it depends on what data set you read. Depends on who did the study and the surveys and how it was conducted. The stuff that we look at comes from the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Association or Administration, SAMHSA, and they do their National Survey of Drug Use and Health. The takeaway that I get when I look at that stack of information is that if you look at it broad scale, got to look at it longitudinally, like your stock and your retirement planning, right? You have to look at the whole picture. You can't just focus on one year because it's, it fits your dialogue or fits the argument you're trying to make. And what we see in states that have legalized cannabis, they have use rates that are higher than the national average. The states that have not legalized yet are underneath the national average. We're seeing those numbers starting to trend up. It's really not so much the kids, to be honest with you. When we look at national rates or rates from Colorado, from about 2013 through this last year, 2021, the use rate for kids, once in the last 30 days, has generally gone down. We're still higher than the national average. The places where we see the biggest jumps, 18 to 25-year-olds, because that is the largest group out there using. I mean, those numbers are 2 and 3 times that of what the kids were, and it makes sense. They're out of the house, they're in college, they're out of college, they're on their own, they're making their own money. Mom and dad don't have to run roughshod over them, right? The other group that makes the biggest jump is our age bracket. We get older, things just kind of have a tendency to hurt, and people are looking at marijuana as an alternative to that. Is there research that supports? Yeah, but it's in low dosage, not what we see now. We're talking like 4 or 5, no more than 10%.
We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back to continue our conversation on the scope of marijuana distribution and exploitation of misinformation that may cause serious harm. See you all after the break. You don't want to miss this.
Multiple studies have shown that marijuana can slow both driver reaction and response time, which can be really dangerous. He's here. He's here.
Wait.
What?
I can't drive.
Why? My. Oh.
Every second, 127 new devices connect to the internet. You can feel it happening. Our digital world expanding with every breath. We're entering a whole new era of connectivity, and MediaCom will be ready to power it with one of the nation's first 10G platforms. We'll be bringing you more speed, more capacity, more security, and the power to do more than you ever dreamed possible.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're with Dale Quigley and talking about how and why we're experiencing some serious health problems with marijuana. In many cases, it's not because it isn't the problem, it's that it's not immediate like a drug overdose, but it evolves to serious levels over time. Can you tell us a little bit more about that idea, Dale?
Yeah, that's a great concept you're touching on. One of the arguments you hear from the proponents is, well, nobody ever overdosed and died from marijuana. Well, okay. We all know we can overdose in heroin. We know we can overdose in alcohol, cocaine, water. We can even do that. Anytime that we consume so much of one substance that we have a toxic reaction to it and requires medical attention, you just overdosed. Okay, it's just that simple. You have taken too much. The toxicity level is too high. But everyone wants to think that, okay, nobody's ever overdosed on marijuana. Well, okay, we know down the road what some of the health consequences are from alcohol and from tobacco. Nobody's ever overdosed on smoking a cigarette. But 20, 30, 35 years later, the outcome may not be as good as you wanted. So to say that cannabis is completely devoid of any deleterious outcomes or health effects, I think is rather naive. It's misleading is what it truly is. You've got to go into this with your eyes wide open, whether you're talking about use or legalization. Understand what the short-term and long-term potential problems are. I think that's where we're missing the boat a lot of times.
I'm in agreement with you on a statement you made a little earlier today, and that's that this could be one of the major public health issues in time as it evolves. It's in a sense a ticking time bomb. And I think our greatest hope is really educating kids and youth, but then we also see the marijuana industry has repeatedly targeted youth with their ad, even though they're not saying it, they emulate Pop-Tarts or other common youth snacks that are edibles. This is a frightening thing to look at because we're almost fighting an industry. We work with tobacco, we work with alcohol to set up standards for advertising, marketing, and distribution, but it seems like we have nowhere near that kind of attention to detail with marijuana products.
Think where we were with tobacco. If we were in an auditorium right now and there's 1,000 people sitting in there, and this was 15 years ago, and I said, who in here smokes? Virtually most every hand's going to go up. When I ask that question now, virtually no hands go up. In fact, the ones that do smoke, you can tell they kind of get that sheepish little look in their eyes and they start hunkering down. So look how long it took to catch tobacco in the lies. 9 out of 10 doctors recommend, this particular brand of cigarette. You got asthma? Smoke a cigarette. Really? And it took decades for that to get caught up. Why? Because it took that long for the research to come out, good, solid research to the point where all they could do is sit before Congress and go, okay, you win, you caught us. Where do we write the check? I see down the road, I haven't got a crystal ball in front of me, I see the same thing happen with corporate cannabis. Sooner or later, they're going to ask questions and they're going to go, sorry, we didn't tell you the truth back then, but we made a lot of money off of it. And I think they're following the same playbook that we saw with large tobacco. And why shouldn't they? It was very productive. It was very encouraging for them financially.
Now, is it true what we hear that when we start looking at tobacco, alcohol, and add marijuana in the mix, more kids' first drug or hazardous substance use is marijuana than alcohol now?
Yeah, when we look at the major class, alcohol, marijuana, opioids, tobacco, it goes in the bad. First one is the primary one is alcohol. Number 2 in that one is cannabis. So we're talking like the last study that came out of SAMHSA was 2.6 million people decided that, today's the day I'm going to use marijuana for the first time. So
2.6 million a day?
No, over the course of a calendar year.
Over a year, okay.
Over the course of a calendar year. But I mean, you think about it, that when we talk about 2.6 million people over the course of a calendar year, when we look at the raw numbers, that's over 7,000 people each day decided, yeah, today's the day. And if we break that down even more granular, that's like 5 people a minute. That's 1 every 12 seconds. That's a lot of people initiating. Does it mean they go on with it? No, not necessarily, but some do. Does that mean they all get addicted? No, but some do. The good news is,
we've conclusively now know scientifically there's no benefit to alcohol, not even 1 drink a day. There is nothing. You're better off without alcohol in your life. You're better off without cigarettes in your life. Are we getting close to the point where we realize that there are really no benefits to the marijuana industry other than any products that might come right from a pharmacy or a doctor?
So benefits from the industry or benefits from the plant?
The plant.
So when we take a look at the plant, when you look, it's got 100 plus cannabinoids and chemical structures. I am hard pressed to believe that there is not one favorable combination of cannabinoids out there somewhere that's going to have a positive outcome. If you want to see what medical marijuana looks like, okay, we have seen it in one particular drug. It's a CBD-based drug, Epidiolex, that's used to treat 2 or 3 very specific neurospastic disorders in pediatric patients. So what do we need? We need more research. We need to have a greater understanding of not only just the harms. I mean, you can't look at things from just one perspective. We got to take a look at what are the harms, what are the benefits. That's the way we do real medicine in this country.
That's fantastic. Well, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, Dale, we're going to ask you to share some final comments, insights, and inspiration. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this.
Today, more than ever, you need fast, reliable internet. At Mediacom, we want you to know you can count on us. Our fiber-powered 100% gigabit technology network was built for the future. We have enormous capacity and power and 99.99% network reliability. So even though these are uncertain times, we're prepared. And you can be certain we'll keep your world connected. Every second, 127 new devices connect to the internet. You can feel it happening, our digital world expanding with every breath. We're entering a whole new era of connectivity, and Mediacom will be ready to power it with one of the nation's first 10G platforms. We'll be bringing you more speed, more capacity, more security, and the power to do more than you ever dreamed possible.
Today on Surviving Bad, we're talking about the impact of marijuana on some at-risk populations experiencing unintended consequences. Let's see what insights and inspiration our guest, Dale Quigley, has to share. Dale, what would you share with people? What warnings would you put out there? What are the most important messages you think need to go out to our listeners?
Potency. Potency of the THC products that's in the general marketplace right now are at astronomically, historically high levels that we've never seen before. And all the research that's gone on in years leading up to where we're at, it lays good foundational, but that research was stuff about, 7, 8, 10% potency at its best. We've got raw biomass, raw flower that you can buy in the markets right now at 30+%. Some of it's being advertised at over 40%. You got concentrates at 60, 70, 80, 90% potency rates. And you've got other products like crystallite, that's THCA, tetrahydrocannabinolic acid. That's a standalone product, occurs in the plant naturally, but when it's subjected to high heat, it turns into nothing but THC. And that's coming and being sold over the counter at 99%. So, that would be the first big thing I would tell you, is that if you want to put it in common terms, the potency of THC is to marijuana what crack was to cocaine, what ice was to methamphetamine, or more importantly, what fentanyl and carfentanil is to narcotic analgesics. If you want a little more guttural, it's the difference between having a wine cooler and a jug of Everclear in terms of the potency of the product. That would be the first one I would leave it with, is potency.
Do you see a trend where there's going to be more effort to protect access to these products to children?
I would say yes, but it's going to take some large-scale intervention. Right now, we've got 33 states and the District of Columbia doing things 33 different ways. There needs to be some caps put onto this, and that would be the first thing I would start with. Put a cap on this product. Give science and research time to catch up, to understand not only the benefits, but the harms of this. And right now, the high potency stuff, I don't see much benefit other than it's making a lot of money for the industry. lot of money for the industry, but I don't see much benefit to public health.
Now let's take another viewpoint. Let's go back in time to when you were a teenager, and then put that teenager into this day and age. If Dale could go back and talk to his younger self today, what would you tell them that you think they might listen to?
I had a hard problem listening to stuff when I was a teenager. Okay, I thought I knew it all. And the surprising thing is, here I am in my mid 60s. My parents have been dead for decades now, and the older I get, the smarter they keep getting. That's the part that worries me. So if I was going to go back and tell myself one thing, it would be study harder in school, develop a sound foundation of faith at a younger age, and you know what? Generally, learn to live life as a good person. Your mug says it. Life is good. Life is good. We just need to capitalize on it and take care of each other. Going back to the theme that we talked about in the first segment, we owe it to each other to take care of each other.
Do our young kids and parents need to understand that the risk of marijuana is right up there with alcohol and tobacco, and what we've learned there, we need to apply to how we raise our kids?
Exactly. When I speak to public groups, I try to encourage them, treat this like owning a gun. If you got a gun in the house, you keep it out of the way of kids. Make sure the kids understand this is not a toy. This is something very dangerous. And of course, you got to do it age appropriate levels, right? Same thing with prescription drugs in your house. Keep them away from the kids. Alcohol, keep it up away from the kids. And if you're choosing to use it, be responsible about it. Keep it away from the children.
That's great advice. And thank you so much for sharing your work and your passion for this with us. And thank you all for watching. Check out our website at healthyiowa.org and keep your eye on MediaCom MC22 for our next episode of Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. On MediaCom MC22, your local programming leader.